All right, today we're going to be looking at RVJ versus AUDEN LARRATT. Honestly, I didn't think we were going to be seeing anything like this for quite some time. I just didn't expect that AUDEN was going to be anywhere near this level, and I know I'm a few days late on this, but probably still better late than never. So what we're going to see upon the go, and really right before the go, it looks to me like AUDEN is supinating just a little bit. You can see that he's covering his own thumb knuckle. And RVJ is getting more of a standard, more of a traditional grip, and it looks like he's going to be trying to keep his cup. AUDEN doesn't really care near as much about his cup as long as he can attack RVJ's fingers. He's trying to get outside, and he's trying to force RVJ to hold on to him to control the high grounds, and that's going to give him access to that king's move eventually. It's also worth noting that this is a left-handed match, and I don't really know where RVJ's left is as compared to his right. He did used to compete both left and right-handed, and I think he did pretty well. And AUDEN does still train his left arm at the moment. I don't think that it's quite at the level of his right arm based off of his lifts, but maybe this gives us some sort of idea as to what a right-handed match would look like at some point in the future. So we do see that AUDEN is kind of initiating here, and he ends up dragging. So by doing this, he's dragging to the back of the pad. He still has access to roll out into his king's move, but you can see that he opens RVJ's elbow flexor. So right off the bat, he's kind of conceding maybe some of his wrist flexion. Potentially, he's not in the best position in terms of his wrist flexor. But what he has done is he has opened RVJ's bicep angle. This starts at maybe a 90-degree angle, and then right off the go, it's way more than that 90-degree angle. So now RVJ's ability to go sideways is going to be significantly hindered. And we're going to see this as the match goes on. Not only is RVJ's ability to go sideways not as good, but his ability to climb now is also going to be nowhere near what it would have been if AUDEN had simply rocked back for height. By dragging, by conceding a little bit of position in his wrist flexion, he has done a lot of damage into RVJ's ability to climb over the course of the match. So we see right away RVJ decides to come forward. He tries to supinate, and he's essentially trying to push past AUDEN's wrist. He's not simply trying to bend his wrist to wrist curl AUDEN, but he wants to push past him. He's trying to use physics. He's trying to use his frame to attack AUDEN's pronator instead of only his wrist flexion. And you can see right away that there's some sort of balance found. And this was extremely shocking to me when I first saw this. I just didn't think that AUDEN was at this level, but it's clear to see that he is taking RVJ's wrist just a little bit as RVJ tries to drive down to the pad. You can see that wrist crack back just a little bit. Now, AUDEN is in the full-blown king's move, but still, even if he is in the king's move, I would have expected RVJ to do significantly better than this. And you can see that at this point, the match is on. RVJ is committed to holding on to his wrist flexion, and potentially he would do a different strategy the second time around after feeling how difficult that is. But you can see that he's really trying to keep his cup. He's not trying to climb. He's committed to coming forward. Everything that he's doing, technically speaking, is prioritizing his wrist flexion. He's not trying to go over the top, but he wants to control AUDEN's pronator. He wants to contain him. And by doing this, you see that he's supinating a little bit more, trying to get some sort of connection on that lower part of AUDEN's arm, but it's not really working. He's getting close to pins, but every time he drives, he's bouncing off of that sticky king's move point, and his wrist is going back. Now, there is one moment here where he kind of realizes, okay, this might not work, and we see him do a climb. So he tries to reverse it, and AUDEN feels as soon as this happens, as soon as there's up pressure in the match, he climbs, and then AUDEN also covers his own thumb. So both pullers get a pretty solid climb there, and I wouldn't say that necessarily either guy's in a better or worse position after that climb, but this is benefiting AUDEN because his style is more efficient over time, whereas RVJ is gassing out over time. And you can see that as RVJ tries to drive, he separates his elbow flexor even more. He cracks his own wrist back. And from this position right here, RVJ is totally the one putting down pressure. He's holding on. AUDEN is in a much more efficient style. And I would tend to think that if this was a super match, AUDEN is going to start doing better and better. RVJ doesn't seem to have a great option from this position. He kind of does another really slight climb maneuver there, and AUDEN climbs with him, but it's not really working. So then we see RVJ commit back to the hooking style. He brings his shoulder forward and he tries to supinate and get some sort of arm-on-arm connection to AUDEN's lower arm, right around his wrist. And he's getting close once again, but he just can't quite get this pin. And now RVJ tries to climb kind of in a hooking motion, improving his ability to bend his wrist, and you can see he gets a little bit more cup now. He's a little bit more past the majority of Auden's arm, and so from here, Auden is in a little bit more trouble. I think potentially Auden tried to do a climb, and it wasn't quite there, and he ended up getting a little bit lower than he would have been ideally. But even still, from that position, you can see that when RVJ drives at this point, his wrist is totally back, and he's very close to a pin here. It's hard to tell if that's a pin or not. But in doing this and kind of committing to that sort of flop press-ish lane, he ends up shoving Auden off the back of the pad. And now this is not really in a position where anything can happen. There's no way that Auden's going to be able to get his elbow back onto the pad. So depending on the rule set, this would either be a foul in a losing position, or if it was under a running foul system, Auden's probably just going to foul out in a few seconds here. And either way, I don't know if RVJ was saying this was a pin or if he concedes this due to the king's move, but that was extremely impressive to me from Auden, and they're going to go one more time here. Now Auden with significantly more confidence. This time, he's a lot more offensive, and I think he's trusting that king's move sticking spot a lot more. He knows that he doesn't necessarily have to get a super shallow grip in order to attack RVJ's hand. So this time, he kind of prioritizes his cup a little bit more, and he prioritizes the depth of his grip more because he's confident in his ability to roll out if he needs to. And he doesn't want RVJ to be able to climb over the top of him. He doesn't want him to be able to get a super deep cup grip. And so RVJ once again is committing to that inside lane. He's committing to the hook lane. He's trying to supinate and get the lower part of his palm and his wrist attacking Auden's wrist so that he can access his arm power. But even from this position, every time he begins to drive sideways, you can see his wrist starts to crack back, and Auden is letting that cup go, and that's flattening out RVJ's wrist. RVJ is beginning to get a little overpronated potentially, and when that occurs, he's losing his wrist flexion. So that lane is just not really there available to him. RVJ is just slowly gassing out over time. Auden's position, Auden's style is just way more efficient. Regardless of who has better muscular endurance, Auden is going to last out longer because he's not using as much total musculature. Now this time, RVJ has committed more to going up and over the top. He has a lot more intentionality with his elbow flexion, and you can see that he's starting to cover Auden's thumb entirely. He's getting really far out the back, getting really far over the top. This is a great position for him, and potentially the flop press is very available from this moment. He's looking good, and he continues to climb, and at this point, it's a little bit less serious. RVJ is already having a conversation with Devin. I don't know that he's going to be able to win from this position, though, because he has significantly compromised Auden's hand, but the same is true for him. And they're both very separated. Whenever you get this super separated position against the king's mover, odds are you're not going to be able to beat them unless you flop press. And unfortunately, and I guess maybe this is because people started to realize, hey, this is an actual pay-per-view potential match, so let's quit giving it away for free. Somebody comes over here and goes ahead and lets Auden win for free. RVJ doesn't seem to be super happy about that, but I think maybe that was okay because it looks like we're probably going to see this match at some point in the future, hopefully on the right arm. And let me know what you guys think about this, but I really think this is potentially a very close match. Interestingly enough, even though Auden is younger, he is significantly heavier than RVJ, I believe. So I think this would be a very, very cool match. And honestly, I think if this happens sometime in the next 6 months, I don't really see RVJ getting any better, but Auden is progressing at such a fast rate. His training really seems to be super dialed in for the strategy he wants to use on the table. So if this match does end up happening, I have a feeling that Auden is going to be the favorite unless RVJ can do a lot of damage with that flop press. I don't really see him being able to contain Auden, and I don't see him being able to climb up and over the top. And as rounds go on, I think that Auden's technical ability is going to win him the battle of efficiency. But let me know what you guys think about this. I was super, super impressed by Auden. I just didn't think he was at this level yet. Hopefully we get to see this match sometime in the next few months.